This is my audience. Today we'll be talking about GMOs. Do you think your food was designed by a scientist?
Some of it.
I hope not. Yes.
No.
I'll only be surprised to find that most food is genetically modified. GMOs are genetically modified organisms, or living organisms whose genetic material has been artificially manipulated in a laboratory through engineering. The new science creates unstable species of plants, animals, bacteria do not occur naturally in nature. And most genetically modified organisms are engineered so that they can withstand the herbicide, basically. So they make them so that farmers can use incredible amounts of herbicides and pesticides to kill off all the other weeds, but the actual genetically modified plants are immune to them. Some of them actually have built-in herbicides. Genetically modified organisms create dangerous side effects by mixing genes from totally unrelated species. You have unpredictable side effects. The presence of a genetically modified plant can introduce new toxins, allergens, carcinogens, and even nutritional deficiencies. GMOs have been studied by many doctors. They cite animal studies showing organ damage, gastrointestinal damage, and immune system disorders, and even infertility. Human studies, although not studied for very long, show that GMOs can leave behind long-term material, possibly causing long-term problems. In soy, for example, the GMO can actually transfer into your DNA, and it can even be transferred into pregnant women's babies. Numerous health problems have increased after GMOs were introduced. They first became widely used in 1996. So before then, most things were actually natural and the real species of plants. The percentage of Americans with 3 or more chronic illnesses has gone from 7% to 13% more in 9 years since GMOs were introduced. Food allergies have skyrocketed. Disorders such as autism, reproductive disorders, digestive problems, and others have gone up increasingly. Although there is not sufficient research to claim that GMOs alone are the factor, many doctors believe that it would be safer to get away from GMOs now. The American Public Health Association has condemned the use of genetically modified growth hormones in milk, which has finally become more of a widespread known problem, and most stores don't sell genetically modified milk anymore because that hormone was actually linked to cancer. Most developed nations do not consider GMOs to be safe. In more than 60 countries around the world, GMOs are actually banned. And the US government has approved GMOs, and increasingly Americans are taking matters into their own hands and choosing to opt out. Most Americans, when asked if they want GMOs in their food, 91% say they want GMOs labeled, and 53% say they would not want GMOs in their food at all. In most countries, GMOs have to be labeled, but there aren't a lot of laws about it yet in the US. Government oversight is very lax when it comes to GMOs. Most of the health and environmental risks are ignored by government's regulations. This is mostly due to political reasons. The US Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA for example, doesn't require a single safety study, does not mandate labeling of GMOs, and allows companies to put their GMO foods onto the market without even notifying the agency. Their justification was that no information showing that GMOs were substantially different, but this was a lie. Secret memos have been made public by a lawsuit that shows overwhelming consensus that many of the FDA's own scientists have realized that GMOs can create unpredictable and hard to detect side effects. They urged long-term studies but the White House has instructed the FDA to promote biotechnology. The agency official who's in charge of this study was Monsanto's former attorney. Monsanto is one of the biggest GMO companies out there. And now he's the U.S. food safety czar. And the truth is that most food we buy in the grocery store does actually have GMOs in it, unless it's labeled particularly non-GMO or organic. No organic food has GMOs. There have been many pushes to make companies label them. Some companies, such as Whole Foods, have really gone a step further and made the products that come in get labeled GMO or non-GMO in most cases of what they sell. About 80% of processed food has GMOs in it. GMOs are extremely prevalent in most agriculture now. And the problem isn't just that they're everywhere in agriculture, but that they're actually taking it over. And most farmers have found that GMOs don't actually increase their yields at all, which is one of the biggest fights for GMOs, because they say that these GMOs will actually make the plants grow better and stronger and more successful, so there'll actually be more food, especially in developing countries, but that's false. It's actually been proven that there's better yield in non-GMO products. And because GMOs are patented, many farmers have problems with GMO crops getting contaminated into organic crops or natural food products. And then the companies such as Monsanto actually sue the farmers and often end up getting their farms or basically bankrupting them. So they're essentially taking over everything to a point where everything will become genetically modified. So this not only threatens the farmers, but it basically means that if nothing happens, sooner or later this will just be all food. And because GMOs are specifically made to be herbicide intolerant, farmers are using tons of herbicide, more than they used to. Monsanto, for example, sells Roundup Ready crops designed to survive applications of Roundup. Between 1996 and 2008, U.S. farmers sprayed an extra 383 million pounds of herbicide on GMOs. Overuse of Roundup results in super weeds that grow resistant to herbicide, and then these weeds spread everywhere and can cause incredible environmental harm. GMO foods that contain residues of these toxic herbicides have been linked to sterility, hormone disruption, birth defects, and cancer. So basically, because these foods have GMOs, they have a ton more herbicide and pesticide as well. GMOs contaminate forever because they cross-pollinate, and their seeds can travel from birds, the wind, weather, water, just going down the river from farm to farm. It is impossible to fully clean up the gene pool. GMO pollution will outlast the effects of global warming and nuclear waste. The GMO contamination has also caused economic losses for organic and non-GMO farmers who struggle to keep their crops pure. And that's what I was talking about with the contamination. The associated herbicide use can hurt birds, insects, amphibians, and other ecosystems, greatly damaging the environment. GM crops are eliminating habitat for monarch butterflies, as well as other species. Roundup herbicide has been shown to cause increased birth defects, as well as organ damage in animals, even at low doses. GM canola has been found growing in the wild, threatening to pass on its herbicide-tolerant genes onto other weeds, essentially creating even more super weeds and other problems out there. Over 80% of all GMOs are engineered for herbicide tolerance. GMO crops are also responsible for killing even more animals and bug species. GMOs are a direct extension of chemical agriculture. They pretty much go hand in hand. These companies also make herbicide and pesticide. The long-term impacts are unknown, and these species basically cannot be stopped or recalled. They'll continue to be out there forever now. Most experts would agree that GMOs pose a credible risk to our health. The only way to ignore them or avoid them is to be knowledgeable of their presence. Unfortunately, even though people consistently show that they have an increased desire to be knowledgeable of GMO products, the government still does nothing about it. The biotech lobby is increasingly powerful, and they've kept this information from the public. The Non-GMO Project is a project that was created to give consumers the choice they deserve. So you'll see a lot of products actually saying Non-GMO Project verified, and it's kind of it's not a mandatory labeling, it's a labeling that companies can choose to participate in. So a lot of food is starting to show that label. Some people may or may not care about GMOs in their food, but they should at least know that what they're eating and have that choice. There are many reasons people have problems with GMOs. They're a huge part of our lives, and they have many risks, as well as political impacts. The International Assessment of Agriculture, Knowledge, Science, and Technology has authored by more than 400 scientists and backed by 58 governments, stated that GM crop yields were highly variable. In some cases, yields actually declined. They determined that the current GMOs have nothing to offer the goals of reducing hunger and poverty, improving nutrition, health, and rural livelihoods, and facilitating social and environmental sustainability. So essentially, they have no benefit. By avoiding GMOs, you can contribute to the tipping point of consumer rejection. It's believed that even if a small percentage of people stop buying GMO products, as little as 5% even, and that might be enough to stop these companies from providing them. In Europe, for example, in 1999, this was achieved after a big scandal was released showing the dangers of GMOs, and it's actually been completely banned there now. It's pretty much the same thing that happened here with the growth hormone. The campaign for healthier eating in America is designed to achieve this tipping point. But basically, the biggest thing is just to be knowledgeable, and if you do choose to go non-GMO, you have to look for products that are either certified or organic. Anything organic not only doesn't have GMOs, but it also doesn't have any non-organic pesticides on it as well.